Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, now looking at the role of Islamic education in addressing global challenges. So, first we need to identify what are some of these challenges. And we're focusing as well on integrating values, knowledge, and innovation. So, no doubt, Thursina is doing very well in integrating, teaching Azhar curriculum, Cambridge curriculum, all combined, as well as the Indonesian national curriculum. This is very unique, and this is a clear example, a very good example of integrating various aspects of knowledge, because this is something which historically Islamic education has not simply been restricted to religious studies only. Of course, religious studies very important, but we have seen many other aspects. Perhaps if we can move to slide, I'll try to save time. Slide number 4, please. Next slide. Slide number 4. In general, we know that among the core aspects or features of Islamic education are focuses on tarbiyah, ta'lim, and ta'dib. So focusing on training, the upbringing of Muslim Muslim youth since childhood, focusing on ta'lim, focusing on the direct dissemination of knowledge to ensure a person changes from not knowing to knowing, and of course ta'dib, which is focusing on adab, on manners, on actually implementing. And of course these are among the core aspects. I won't go too deep into this so we can save some time. Next slide. Throughout history, we have seen, of course, there are many, many examples of Islamic scholars who have certainly been scholars of Islamic religious sciences, but also other sciences. And of course, we can see some of the examples. We have Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Al-Ghazali. These are just among the many examples that we can see of how they were experts in various fields of knowledges, in various sciences, in Islamic aspects as well as many others. And of course, they have played a major contribution to the advancement of human civilization, not just Muslims, human civilization, which is not spoken about enough in non-Muslim societies. So this is something that we need to try to do, is spread the awareness, inshallah. So now I'd like to go directly to our main issue, and that is, what are some of the challenges that we face? If we can move to slide number 9, please. What are some of the challenges that we face as Muslims? What are some of the challenges that the Ummah is facing, which many aspects of society have important roles to play, including educational institutions? Of course, not everything, it's not a burden only for Islamic educational institutions. It's for many other parts of society, but there is certainly an important role for schools and universities and all forms of educational institutions to face these challenges. Among them, of course, is technology. And technology is something which is very important, but it is a tool. It is an important tool. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. I recall, I think many decades ago, I can't recall which country, but there was a fatwa, maybe 50 or 60 years ago, before my time. I'm not that old yet. But before my time, there was a fatwa in a Muslim country that said television is haram. This was a fatwa in a particular region. Television was considered haram by a particular scholar or mufti of a particular region. This was a long time ago. Now, perhaps depending on the circumstances, there are many negative things on television. There were and there still are many negative things on television. And if we're looking at how to prevent this from influencing the people, then that's one way prevent television from them. But as we know, television can also be used for good. It just depends on how we use it, what is the content, not the actual television itself. So television is a tool. In today's era, we have computers, internet, technology, smartphones, and in a few years' time, we don't know, wallahu alam, what else will happen. It can always be used for good and for evil. Something that perhaps many people might be familiar with, it's made world headlines, and that is in Australia, the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has announced that the Australian government is working to ban children from social media, if I'm not mistaken, under 16 years of age. I'm not familiar with the details, how this will be managed and all this, but this is a sign that even in Australia, many parents, I'm also a parent, many parents in Australia feel and understand the dangers of social media. And there are many cases, unfortunately, there are cases of which even bullying in schools, which when it comes into social media, it means it's 24 hours. And it goes more, it can spread to more than just the school community. It can spread to all different online communities. And embarrassment and things like this. There have been children who have committed suicide due to social media. And other cases, pedophilia. These are evil things which people with evil intentions have been able to use social media to get in direct contact with young children who have access to social media accounts and so on. So there are many evil, negative things that need to be avoided at all costs, and so the Australian government is working to try to put a ban. Which has made a lot of people to start thinking. And some people agree, some disagree, but nevertheless, it is something which can be noted and perhaps can be also copied. So there are many examples of how social media and technology in general can be very useful, but it can also be very problematic as among the challenges that we face. As Muslims, and particularly as educators in Islamic educational institutions. If we go to the next slide, there are also many other challenges, including ethical dilemmas. Now, ethical dilemmas. For those who have studied in Australia and those who are going to study in Australia, there are many good, positive things that you can learn from Australia. Many good things. But not everything in Australia is positive. We need to understand this as Muslims, from an Islamic perspective. Australia is one of the countries which is at the forefront of promoting LGBT communities. Unfortunately, in 2017, we can see here, there was a survey. The government asked the nation, should Australia change the law to allow same-sex marriage? This was in 2017. Almost 20% of the population didn't vote. It was not compulsory. Almost 20% did not vote. They thought, they didn't care. 80% of the population voted. Of these 80%, 61% said yes. Less than 40% of the population voted no. They do not agree with same-sex marriage. Based on this, the government said, okay, in Parliament they decided it is agreed. So until now, same-sex marriage is permitted in Australia. So this is one issue. This itself is not the major problem. Since then, this has been an example for the LGBT movements, and they have been continuously promoting with the idea that majority of Australians agree. So they have been continuously promoting, it's not enough for Australians to accept same-sex couples and other aspects of LGBT, but it is being promoted openly in government departments, public schools, university campuses across the country. Rainbow flags are everywhere. And it is considered a sign of diversity, a sign of to show that this government department or this school or this university is modern, up to date, advanced. It's this is a major challenge that as Muslims that we are facing in Australia. Muslims, we are a very small minority in Australia. So small that we are only just over 3.2% of the population. These statistics from, I don't know if you can see behind me, the only reference we have really for religious affiliation in Australia is the census. The last census in Australia was in 2021. And 7% of the population did not answer the question about religion. So 93% did. Of these 93%, 3.2% of the population identified as being Muslim. Almost, actually, if you combine all the different Catholic, Protestant, and all the different Christian sects, all the groups that believe in the Trinity, if you combine them together, it was approximately 43% of the population believing in the Trinity. 39% of the population said they do not follow religion at all. And this is an increasing trend. Compared with the statistics from 50 years before, in 1971, almost 90% of the population claimed to be Christian or Catholic. Less than 10% said no religion. 2021, it's almost 40% no religion and 43% Christian or Catholic. Islam, very small number, but this just gives us an indication of what is happening in Australian society, and I would assume it would be very similar in many English-speaking Western countries. Yeah, there is a trend of people leaving Christianity, leaving religion altogether, becoming interested in atheism. Yeah. So society, Western society, is becoming more and more godless. They are removing religious affiliation from society, and this can be seen especially in the UK and Australia and many English-speaking countries. So this gives us a background of what we face in the world, especially in Western societies, and because this is quite often what happens in English-speaking countries, what happens in America and similar Western nations, it doesn't take long for these societal norms, their cultures, to spread, especially with this globalized era that we are living in today, especially with internet. Related also back to the LGBT issue, there was a news article, you can search for the news article, that mentions that even the Australian government also has, in the budget, there is budgeted money to support LGBT rights in Southeast Asia. So don't be surprised if there are LGBT events in Indonesia that may be possibly funded by the Australian government. Yeah, so this is something to be aware of. Now, for many Australians, they think that this is good. But for Muslims, this is obviously not something good. So we have obviously different perspectives. So this is an issue that we face for anyone as imams, as da'is, as speakers, as educators, as teachers in educational institutions. We all share, there is a link between teachers and da'i. Yeah. Very similar. Yeah. We are imparting knowledge. We are trying to help people to understand something that they did not understand beforehand. So there are very similar correlations between preachers, da'is, and formal teachers and educators. So these are among the challenges that we face in today's world. So it is important that we understand what they are, so that we can try to prepare our students and our families to face these challenges. In addition, so if we move on to the next slide, there are other challenges related to social justice, inequality in wealth. This is obvious. We see this all around the world. Sustainability. Yeah. Remembering that indeed Allah created our forefather Adam alayhi salam as the Khalifa of this world. So we as human beings, until this day, we are the superior creation living on the earth where we can do what we want. And there are people doing things in ethical ways, and there are people doing things in unethical ways based on greed and wealth. Example, mining. Mining is not something that is evil necessarily, but it can be done ethically, it can be done unethically. In Australia, Australia has many rules for mining companies. Once they finish, they need to fill up the hole that they have left, and they need to plant trees, make it better than it was before. In some countries, mining companies, when they finish, they disappear, they take the wealth, and they've left an environmental hazard, a big problem in the country that they were in. So this comes back to the importance of government, ensuring that there are procedures in place to ensure that there are regulations for mining companies. So this is related to ethics. Yeah. So sustainability, our role as human beings. So we need to try to spread ethical awareness from an Islamic perspective, and this can be done in all different ways. So now if we move along to slide 13, inshallah, 2 more slides. So what among the proposed framework, so how can we try to face these challenges, particularly from an Islamic educational institutional perspective? How can we try to face these challenges faced by the Ummah? Among the core components include knowledge integration, embedding Islamic ethical principles in curricula. So ethical principles, as I gave the example, even if someone is studying science and they're learning about mining or whatever it is, what are ethical values based on Islamic teachings that we can pass on to the students? So these are some things that we need to try to do. Related to this is bridging religious studies with STEM and social sciences, because Islamic education should integrate revealed knowledge with empirical knowledge. So again, this is something that Thursina is very experienced in doing, providing Islamic and we've got Azhar curriculum, we've got Cambridge curriculum, national Indonesian curriculum, already doing very well, but also so bridging the religious studies. How are they interconnected? Many scholars have said that every subject in school, in fact I recall when I did my bachelor degree was in Islamic studies, and I had to read a little bit about famous Turkish scholar Said Nursi, who was once asked by high school students. He was asked why our teachers in school do not mention the Creator or teach us anything about religion. We're only learning secular subjects. So how can we learn about the Creator? And his response was that every subject you learn, it is knowledge from Allah. It is knowledge from the Creator. Mathematics, everything in science is based on our perspective as human beings, our observations of nature and the universe. How has Allah created everything? So even people who are atheists, they are simply learning from nature, learning from Allah's creation, learning from the systems, from the laws that Allah has put in place. As believers, we need to instill this understanding that it is indeed, all of this is part of Allah's creation. Another aspect is innovation and problem solving. So not simply memorizing. Memorizing Quran, of course, many merits, very good. But when it comes to other subjects, memorizing is not the key. Mathematics, the basic formulas need to be memorized, but there needs to be a strong focus on understanding and also for critical thinking. In Australia, the educational system, there is no memorizing at all. Perhaps only primary school mathematics, times table, as a basic. In high school, Australian students use calculators. They have to. It's part of the curriculum, part of the syllabus. They teach based on using calculator. But for elementary level, there is no calculator. So elementary level, basic mathematics, they memorize. Everything else, there's no memorizing. It's mainly focused on understanding the lessons. So this is another aspect which there are some positive aspects in this. I'm not saying stop all memorizing, but there needs to be a focus on critical thinking as well. Next slide. Educational strategies. So part of a proposed framework is project-based learning addressing real-world challenges. So looking at what are the world challenges, what are challenges being faced by nationally within Indonesia, what are challenges being faced by Muslims internationally, and what type of projects can be given to students that will help them in learning about research and suitable for their level, of course, that will sort of address them and help them to prepare to face these types of challenges. So these are some aspects that can also be done. Number 3 is collaboration. Yeah? Collaboration between religious and secular educational institutions. So there are positive, of course, many positive aspects when it comes to secular subjects. So working together with non-religious schools and institutions is fine as long as it is limited to particular topics. But we need to be careful not to just accept everything. Yeah, we need to be very careful, especially as Islamic educational institutions, to be able to identify and differentiate between what can be taken from the non-religious institutions and what can and what cannot be adopted from what they have to offer. So, in addition, in Australia, alhamdulillah, now there are many Islamic schools. I say many, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. Almost 80% of all Muslims in Australia live in Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah, the two highest Muslim populations, and therefore there are many Islamic schools now in both Sydney and Melbourne. Unfortunately, there are not enough Islamic schools for all Muslim students. There are not enough Muslim teachers to teach in Islamic schools. So they have many non-Muslim teachers, of course not for religious subjects, but it can be problematic when some Muslim schools have non-Muslim teachers. For example, if they are female teachers who do not wear the hijab, the teacher is a role model for students. And for girls seeing a female teacher not wearing hijab, for Muslim girls, they might feel that they might be inspired to follow that example, which, again, from an Islamic perspective, is not correct. So we need to be careful. Of course, it can be considered fine and okay to have some non-Muslim teachers for some aspects, like mathematics perhaps, as long as there is clear guidelines that what they teach is purely the subject at hand, not related to any ideologies or understandings or beliefs. Yeah. So these are some things to take into consideration. And the next slide, we have also using technology. So just like the example where there was once a fatwa made, I think it may have been in India, but don't quote me on that. There was a fatwa made in a particular region a long time ago that television was haram. So this will not prepare students to face the real world. We need to help them to be prepared to face the real world. They need to be familiar with using technology and up to date with technology, but in an ethical manner, yeah, based on Islamic guidelines, Islamic ethical manner, so that they can continue to improve and advance and be up to date. So in the next slide, we see a case study, an example of successful integration, and that is the International Islamic University of Malaysia, IIUM. So this is one example of an Islamic educational institution successfully integrating knowledge between Islamic ethical guidelines into even non-religious studies. So an example of this, although it is in many faculties, an example is in the Faculty of Medicine, Kulliyah of Medicine. The curriculum includes courses on the Islamization of human knowledge in health sciences, covering topics like Islamic epistemology, ethics in Islam, and the integration of Islamic moral and legal values in medicine and scientific research. So this is one example of integrating, which could be implemented by many other educational institutions. But of course, we could add Thursina to the case study here as well. So, next slide, coming to the conclusion, we understand that Islam, among the aspects that how can we try to face these challenges, and what is an important role for Islamic educational institutions? Among the points that we can take is the importance to reform curricula if needed, to reflect the integration of values and knowledge. Also to enhance teacher training to align with the proposed framework. Yeah. Regardless, even if there are, for example, non-Muslim teachers for some subjects, they need to be trained and guided as, there needs to be clear guidelines in how and what they teach. And also to encourage research and innovation grounded in Islamic ethics. Yeah. So these are some aspects that we, inshallah, can help to benefit the ummah and help prepare our next generations to face the challenges of the modern world. On the one hand, we need to understand that there is nothing new on this world. Yeah. Whatever is happening, in some countries, including some Western countries, like I have mentioned on some aspects, LGBT communities are increasing. In fact, I'll just briefly mention that there was a news report recently that said that there was a survey in Australia of youth, so teenagers, youth, young adults, teenagers and young adults in Australia. I'm not sure how many people they surveyed, but based on this survey, it showed that almost 10% of youth identify as being a member of the LGBT community. 10% of youth in Australia. This is an estimation based on a survey, so it's not definite nationwide, but this gives, for them, they think they are modern, advanced, progressive. From our perspective, this is backward, because from an Islamic perspective, we believe that this is not the first time this has happened in history. This is related to the people of Prophet Lot, alayhi salam, and in that case, Allah gave punishment. We are in the end of times, and perhaps these are among the signs of things that remind us that we are in the end era of this world. So this is indeed a challenge that we need to try to face as best as we can. We pray that Allah Ta'ala helps the ummah to face these challenges. We ask that Allah Ta'ala helps us, all involved in Islamic education, to be able to prepare their students in facing these challenges, because indeed there is an important role. So although there are concepts which are not new, they are repeating throughout history, but we have advancements in technology in particular, which were not around in previous times. So this is what we need to be able to prepare ourselves for. So thank you for the time today. I apologize for any shortcomings. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.